Today's going to be a big nothing burgers.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome. I would now like to call the March 19th, 2024 Longmont City Council regular session to order. The live stream of this meeting can be viewed at the city's YouTube channel. It can also be viewed at the longmontpublicmedia.org/watch and Comcast channels 8 and 880. May we have a roll call, please, Crystal?
Mayor Peck,
Present.
Councilmember Christ, present. Mayor Pro Tem Hidalgo Faring, here. Councilmember Martin, here. Councilmember McCoy, Councilmember Rodriguez, here. Councilmember Yarbrough, here. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As a reminder to the public, the rules for providing public comment are as follows. Each speaker must give their name and address and is limited to 3 minutes. Only Longmont residents and employees of the City of Longmont may speak during first call public invited to be heard, and you must sign up on the list prior to the start of the meeting. Persons wishing to speak on a specific second reading or public hearing item are asked to add their name to the speaker list for that specific item prior to the start of the meeting. Anyone may speak, and no sign-up is required to speak during final call public invited to be heard. Do we have any agenda revisions tonight, Crystal? I think we do. It's an ordinance 2024-23. It was amended on March 12, 2024. I'm confused. What is that for? Are we to?
The ordinance was amended. We amended it on March 12, 2024, so we just made a note under that.
Okay, so
So
we don't
that-
need any action on it.
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Do any counselors have agenda items they would like to put on future agendas? I don't have an agenda item, but I do have an ask of council. And you have at your seat, which Bob Norris graciously gave us, it is March for Childcare, which is going to be Saturday, May 18th. And I am wondering, I would like to move that city council support this, and that we have, and Bob will talk about it a little bit later, and that we support it with $500 from our council contingency fund. Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. I don't see it. Let's do a verbal vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. That passes. Thank you, council. Do we have a city manager's report, Harold?
No report, Mayor, Council.
I see no special reports and presentations, so we're going to go immediately to first call public invited to be heard. Remember, you have 3 minutes, and we would like your name and address. The first person on the list is Sherry Malloy.
Sherry Malloy, 1632 Sherman Way. I'm speaking to the 4th of July event proposed on Martin Street adjacent to protected open space at Dickens Farm Nature Area. You're being told the safest place to set off the display is the Fire Training Center on Martin. I don't dispute that. What I do dispute, and others, is the very close proximity to Dickens Nature Area. The issue is where thousands of spectators will go to watch the fireworks, which will be at the Dickens. People want to get close to where fireworks are launched. Staff intends to install fencing and have 3 rangers to keep people out of Dickens. That's unrealistic. How can 55 acres with multiple access points be fenced off? The public will be confused and unhappy about why they're not allowed access to this area, likely breaching the temporary barriers. We have laws and guidelines clearly addressing what is and is not allowed on open space. Our municipal code, open space plan, wildlife management plan, Dickens Farm plan, and more were approved by City Council after careful and thorough public input. These say open space lands should not be used for special events, should allow only passive, low-impact recreation, have restricted hours from sunrise to sunset, be non-consumptive, and prohibit alcohol. The proposed Martin Street Festival and fireworks display with a beer garden, food trucks, stage with large bands, carnival games violate every basic rule. Even if the festival is moved from Martin to another location and the fireworks kept at the training center, the problem of people flocking to and causing harm to the Dickens protected open space area to watch remains. Over $4 million taxpayer dollars went into Dickens. The vegetation has continued to struggle. Most of the trees have died. St. Vrain Creek is a sensitive riparian area. 90% of all wildlife depend on riparian areas for survival. It will be impossible to keep people out and prevent harm from feet, dogs, tarps, wagons, strollers, bikes, trash, sparklers, ground fireworks like fountains and other fireworks. The overuse will cause damage to an already challenged area and harm wildlife. Plastic and other pollutants will get into the creek. Dickens and all our open space areas have value and deserve better. With only 3 months left to plan, I'll mention some options. Number one, the easiest, keep the event at Fox Hill one more year and give staff and the Kiwanis plenty of time to explore better options. 2, move the whole event to downtown with their well-developed festival template. DDA is very interested. Similar to New Year's Eve, the fireworks and drone could be set off from the Memorial Building with people watching from Main Street and Roosevelt. 3, explore Dry Creek Park. 81 acres is plenty large enough with lots of great viewing. There are 4 schools close by with loads of parking and viewing. 4, explore having Quail Campus or Centennial Park as the venues. Please make your recommendation to direct staff to pursue better options. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Bob Norris?
Hi, I'm Bob Norris, 532 Rider Ridge. And for Councilwoman Christ, I'm in your ward. So anyway, everybody else knows me here, I think. Anyway, I'm going to change a little bit about what I said. The reason we started this child care march is everybody knows somebody or themselves have had trouble getting child care or paying for it. So what we want to do is we want to raise the awareness of this issue up like housing or some other issue. And if we do that, then elected people, particularly those in the big building in Boulder, the county commissioners, would have the authority to help us do something about it. So, and then if we raise enough people at the event, then they will know that there's a lot of people that will back them for it. So what the march is going to look like, 8 o'clock, we'll have some tables. Anybody wants to have a table out there? We're not talking about dinner. And then about 8:30, 8:45, we'll have some young children entertaining us. And then we'll have speakers. We're going to let them in 45 minutes. Somebody here once volunteered to be a speaker, Congressman Hidalgo. Or Congressman, you're getting old. Anyway, we'll go for it. Anyway, then they'll be the speakers, and then we'll come back. We're not sure where the march is going yet because Kaufman Street will be some. So at the moment, the Early Childhood Council of Boulder County is the primary sponsor. We have 16 other sponsors, and now 18. So that's good. So we'll hope to see you there. We hope you'll share that information. What we're asking people to do is to share their logos, have them provide information and encourage people to there. And Joan, thank you ever so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Bob. Strider.
Good evening. Strider Benston, 951 West 17th. The child thing, there's many aspects of that. The governor of my home state now Huckabee, well, whoever it is, they change sometimes, is already actively pushing for child labor in the South and in Arkansas. Some of you don't know the main purpose of Jim Crow, to destroy the democracy in the South, the possible democracy, was to put the races against each other, and part of that was to abandon any possibility of workers' rights. No unions in the South. Child labor in North Carolina in 1904, the wages were 58 cents a week. And for about an 80-hour week, most children died before they were of age, like 15 or 16. And that was the province of white workers, because blacks were not allowed to work in the cotton mills. And this is precisely what the game is going on throughout the country. The Trumpsters, Trump studied Hitler. People don't know that he actually read something in his life. He studied Hitler his entire life, how he took over. You put the countryside against the metropolitan areas. You put the uneducated against university people. You put religion against science. You put the past against the future. You can put the cults against democracy. You create a dictatorship. And that is exactly what is happening right here, step by step. Started in 1947, the Mount Pelerin Society, to destroy democracy and the economic structure that was beginning to take place. And Goldwater's campaign was first of it. Now it's gotten down to Trump, a complete cult figure who has no qualities except for violence and assault and law breaking and all of that. Now Paul Manafort is coming back. He served his time in jail after being Trump's campaign manager. He's probably killed more rhinoceroses than any other person on the planet, because he used diamond theft and rhinoceros to put Mobutu in power in Zaire. Wake
you.
up and stand up for democracy.
Thank you,
It's the
Strider.
only chance we have.
Lance Whitaker.
Lance Whitaker, 1750 Collier Street. Lived in Longmont for quite a while. It's a good thing to be a porcupine nowadays with the politics going on. I like to call it the Snickers and the Smuckers ballot, mainly because we got on one side the Snickers and shake your head, and on the other side we got the Smuckers, the presidential candidate who first time be on a jar of jam. How ironic. But anyhow, today is National Backyard Day, National Ag Day, National Chocolate Caramel Day, National Poultry Day, National Nurses Day for all the nurses out there. And it's also 3D Day, which is the third day of the third week of March. So, happy 3D Day. And I love you guys' new plaques. They're much easier to read. Thank you. You guys have a good day.
Thank you, Lance. Steve Altschuler.
Steve Altschuler, 1555 Taylor Drive. Once again, I want to give you some more information about how illegals affect our neighborhood. There's a little article here in the paper. Activists sue Chicago mayor over sanctuary status. A coalition of black Democrats in Chicago is taking legal action against the city over damages they claim have been caused by its sanctuary state status. And I'll skip over a little bit of this. One lady had buyer's remorse after voting for Mayor Brandon Johnson, and she claims preferential treatment towards illegal immigrants over native Chicagoans. That's the definition of a sanctuary city. You take a person that broke the law getting here, they're not being punished for that. They're being arrested for an additional crime once they get here. By definition of a sanctuary city, that illegal person is not being turned over to ICE. They are being released back into the neighborhood. So right there, you're getting preferential treatment for an illegal person versus a citizen of that city or state. And of course, we've all heard, even in California right now, they're going to start giving illegals no interest loans for buying a house. They're going to start giving them $400 a month towards buying a house, all while we have American citizens and veterans, homeless people, living in our streets. This is beyond absurd, and I repeat that I think Longmont City Council, should, just like Aurora and Lakewood, should proclaim ourselves a non-sanctuary city. I know that you said that you never made the city a sanctuary city, but the governor did. So unless an individual city says, hey, we're not partaking in that, you are automatically partaking in that. I've heard, and other people have told me they've seen busloads coming up to 17th and Main and dropping off people that are getting picked up in cars and taken places. I think you have a responsibility to protect the citizens of Longmont, both from crime and outrageous expenses of housing illegals and giving free health care. And I would like to add, Sean, I saw you shaking your head no. 2 weeks ago, you said to me, should Greg Abbott be brought up on charges for aiding and abetting transporting people across the United States, across borders? Well, we already have proof now that Joe Biden has done the same thing. He's flown in over 320,000 people in the dark of night, avoiding our border control and just dropping them off at different airports around the country. So I say to you, shouldn't he be arrested for illegally transporting people in the United States? Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Gary Hodges.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, City Council. I know the last meeting I promised I was going to wrap up my energy series tonight. I'm not going to be able to do that. I wasn't able to prepare my conclusion. So I'm just going to touch on a couple things real quick. In the February City Line, there's this article, Efficiency Work Business Offering Bonus on Rebates, and talk about efficiency in there. Last week there was an article in the New York Times titled A New Surge in Power Use is Threatening U.S. Climate Goals. They actually cover some of the things that I've been discussing here, but they also talk about efficiency in there. And when you heard the climate report at 2 meetings back, they also talked about efficiency. There's a widespread misunderstanding of what efficiency means. And it clearly, most people think it means you're going to get less of something, but it's not correct. It's a fundamental economic principle. Efficiency creates more demand. You end up getting more of what you make more efficient. All you have to do is look at Henry Ford and the assembly line in the car. I mean, that increased efficiency and it spread like crazy. So efficiency is not a way to reduce anything. It's going to exacerbate whatever you're making more efficient. You're going to get more of it. It's just a fundamental economic truth. Not my opinion. This is just pure economics. There's a seminal paper on it that I should have printed out and brought in. So with the climate report talking about efficiency, bad input will lead to bad decisions. So I just bringing that up. How much time's left? Earlier this week, our state legislature exempted themselves from our state's open meetings law. I think the article suggested they got tired of being sued, so instead of fixing it, they just decided to exempt themselves from it. And I'm sure you're not going to do that. I'm not sure if that's even within the power to do that. It's not what I'm saying. But something I would like to mention, and our YouTube channel, the comments are turned off. I would like to request that the city turn the comments on our YouTube channel so that people that watch it or watch portions of it or want to put comments in there that timestamp different sections of the meeting, you know, we can bring more light to what's going on in these chambers. It's really a very trivial percentage of the city that attends these meetings or watches them online. And I just think it'd be really beneficial. I got a feeling I know why you did it, but or why it was done, and maybe it wasn't this council that did that. But I would strongly advocate that comments on the YouTube channel are turned back on, and let's continue to strive to bring light to our
Thank
public
you,
discourse.
Gary. Seeing no one else on the list, I'm going to close first call public invited to be heard, and we're going to move on. We do not have anything on the first reading on ordinances, so we'll move on to the second reading, ordinances on second reading, and public hearings on any matter. The first bill is an amendment, which Crystal had, which was in the very first part of our meeting, amend 2024-23. It's a bill for an administrative ordinance approving the conveyance of parcels of city-owned land to the Longmont General Improvement District Number 1, generally located in the 300 block east parking lot. This has to do with actually the parking lot right across the street, where you will see that it is cordoned off with a green barrier. So, do we have any comments from council? Seeing none, I'll open up the public hearing on ordinance 2024-23. Anybody in the public would like to address this ordinance? Seeing none, let's vote. I will close. First of all, I need to close the public hearing part of this ordinance. And the motion has been made by Councilor Rodriguez on 2024-23, seconded by Councilor Yarbrough. Let's vote. I still can't bring mine up. No, it's not working. So can we have a voice vote? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed. That passes unanimously. This is going to be a very short meeting. We are now at final call, public invited to be heard.
Do I need a break?
Do we need a break during this whole meeting? A bio break. Come on down. Yes, please. State your name and address.
Ira Chernus, 2719 Denver Avenue. I'm getting up here to express my deep concern as a Jewish American for the suffering of the people in Israel and Gaza. I'm a retired professor of religious studies at CU Boulder. I taught about Zionism and Israel for many years, and I wrote and spoke on that subject in local and national forums, so I know quite a bit about it. There have always been Jews, many of them devout Orthodox Jews, who have criticized Zionist and Israeli policies. That did not in any way make them anti-Semitic. So it's very important that you don't confuse criticism of Israel and its policies with anti-Semitism. Not the same thing. Since the 1980s, important Palestinian leaders have offered to negotiate peace with Israel. All they asked was that Israel allow the Palestinians the right to form their own independent nation. That's the same right of self-determination that's at the heart of Zionism. And there have always been Zionists who wanted their leaders to accept the Palestinians' offer of peace negotiations. But sadly, the Israeli leaders have consistently chosen to ignore Arab peacemakers. The Israeli leaders claim they care most about Israel's security, but history and the current conflict show clearly that rejecting the path of peace makes Israel less secure. I get emotional talking about this because my sister moved to Israel 50 years ago. She has 5 children and 5 grandchildren there. I care certainly about their security. The current war has forced my sister and many in her family to leave their homes. It's a very painful time for them. And obviously, the longer their government chooses war, rather than allowing a ceasefire that could be the path to peace, the longer my family's pain and insecurity will go on. Now, why should this matter to Longmont City Council? Well, first, because as Americans, we give Israel massive amounts of weaponry that allow it to go on pursuing war. And any war in the Middle East may very well get our men and women in uniform dragged into it. Some of them may live here in Longmont. Also, policy change in Washington happens only when elected officials there hear constituents back home demanding change. Your voice, if you speak out on this issue, would be heard loudly across the state. It would reach to Washington, where the seeds of a new, more even-handed policy on the Middle East are beginning to take root. You could nurture those seeds by giving public support for at least a temporary ceasefire. That would be the first step toward peace and security for my loved ones in Israel. Thank you.
Thank you, Ira. Is there anyone else that would like to speak at this final call? Public invited to be heard. Come on up. State your name and address, please.
Good evening, members of the Longmont City Council. My name is Giselle Hersfeld, and I am a 4-year resident of Longmont and a lifelong resident of Boulder County, and I am the great-granddaughter of a Jewish victim of the Holocaust. In the 14 days since I last spoke with you, the death toll in Gaza has risen to 31,553, 13,790 of whom are children and 9,100 of whom are women. According to a press release by Oxfam, the daily death rate in Gaza is higher than any other major 21st century conflict, with the Israeli military killing an average of 250 Palestinians per day. According to the UNRWA, the number of children reported killed in just over 4 months in Gaza is higher than the number of children killed in 4 years of wars around the world combined. According to Al Jazeera, approximately 15 people are killed in Gaza, 6 of whom are children, every hour. So if this meeting were to go until 10 p.m., approximately 75 Palestinians, 30 of whom are children, would have been killed by the Israeli army during the course of this meeting. I agree that nations have a right to self-defense, but if Israel's definition of self-defense includes laying siege on a civilian population of 2.3 million people, half of whom are children, imprisoning them within the confines of a 25-mile concentration camp, bombing the vast majority of civilian infrastructure, denying the entry of humanitarian aid, shooting people who attempt to retrieve what little aid is allowed in, if Israel's definition of self-defense includes murdering 13,790 children and babies in 163 days, then Israel needs a new definition of self-defense. If anyone thinks that this is an acceptable civilian and child casualty rate under the guise of self-defense, they need a new definition of self-defense. What we are seeing is Hamas being intentionally conflated with all Palestinian people so that the annihilation of Hamas becomes synonymous with the annihilation of the Palestinian people. This is dangerous and genocidal rhetoric. Due to the unprecedented globalization and interconnectedness of the modern world we live in, the delineation between local issues and international issues is blurrier than it has ever been. This is very much a local issue. While I recognize that Gaza is 6,846 miles away from Longmont, I am directly funding this genocide through my tax dollars. Longmont residents' federal taxes contribute $1,435,537 to Israel's weapons, which could instead be funding 170 households with public housing for a year, at a time when far too many people here in our community are houseless or housing insecure. While I recognize that Gaza is 6,846 miles away, I have personally video chatted with my friend in Gaza who told me he did not know if he would live or die that night. I suffer from severe depression due to the images and videos I wake up to every day coming out of Gaza. This is a local issue. Your community members are being impacted. We are paying for this through our tax dollars, and we want this to end. And we hope that you will stand with us in our call for peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, remember that I want your name and address. If you don't want to mention it, please give your address to Crystal, the city clerk, at the end of our dais. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address council? At final call, public invited to be heard.
Yeah, Strider Benston, 951 17th Avenue. Thank you. There's just so much going on. One thing, Israel certainly has a right to exist and defend itself, but after the first week or two of counteroffensive and stuff, everything has gotten entirely out of hand and quasi-genocidal. I agree with the previous speakers. In our Congress, Rashida Tlaib, who is the only Palestinian member of Congress, was condemned because she used a phrase in one sentence, from the river to the sea. Well, Netanyahu and Israelis have used exactly the same words. Well, and I think she offered an apology because of the implications of that, but she got condemned and censured by Congress, not for what she said, but because of who she is, because the attacks on the squad or whatever have always been like that. I mean, defensive weapons, Israel certainly has the right to, like the Iron Dome and stuff, but the offensive stuff is becoming genocide at this point. And the game, the power game in the UN and the preventing votes and all that kind of stuff, we have to find a way to get beyond that. We have to survive the UN, but it's not really that democratic an organization. It was supposed to have been with Eleanor Roosevelt and General Smuts and T.R. Desjardins and various Henry Wallace and people who helped to create the UN. They were thinking about peoples, but it got turned into nations, and it was only what the physical structures of the countries and their power structures were. And the veto came in with that, and the veto abolishes democracy, just like the Senate filibuster rule abolishes democracy. 40% wins everything. 59% loses everything. I mean, those games, we got to figure out what the heck they're doing, how they're doing it. And with the uneducated people, that is what the Trump game is. To prevent people knowing history, knowing personality, knowing their own lives, knowing the interplay of different cultures, and education. We got to have some again.
Thank you, Strider. Is there anyone else that would like to address this issue, or not this issue, but any issue?
Steve Altshuler, 1555 Taylor Drive. And kind of like 2 weeks ago, I'd like to point out that I have 20 family members living in Israel. Brother, sister, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, nieces, nephews, great-nieces, great-nephews. My youngest nephew was in the IDF, and he was released a couple years ago. And on October 8th, he was called up for service as a reserve. And for the next 2 or 3 weeks, he had the unenviable job of going out and picking up dead bodies, babies with their heads chopped off, old women, young women that have been raped multiple times, beaten. There was not one person at that festival that had a gun. These asinine terrorists attacked unarmed people just out having fun. And one thing about terrorists like Hamas, they do not wear uniforms. They purposely don't wear uniforms so that the IDF, and this isn't just in Israel, but even in Vietnam and other places, they don't wear uniforms so you can't tell who the enemy is. So when you're going out fighting, you don't know who that person facing you, if it's a good person or a bad person. A couple weeks ago, they spoke about hospitals. About 2 weeks into this war that Israel did not start, but they had to fight back to save their sovereignty. There was a big headline about Israel bombs a hospital and 500 people died. And then it turned out that it wasn't Israel that bombed the hospital. It was Hamas, and one of their missiles went astray. And it never even hit the hospital. It hit a parking lot. And they showed the video of the tracking of that missile as proof of where the missile came from and where it struck. So nobody wants innocent people killed. But Hamas is the group that built tunnels underneath hospitals, underneath schools. They hide behind the schools. They took the hostages just so that they could use them as human shields. So, like I said, nobody wants this war. But the only reason to stop it now is to let Hamas rearm and get ready to attack again. There was peace on October 6th. Who broke that peace? It wasn't Israel. And my family and every Israeli person over there won't be safe until they can wipe out Hamas. And if Palestinians and other people don't want to be killed by accident, then they can turn over the Hamas people. They can rebel against Hamas. And like I said 2 weeks ago, before Israel bombs anything, they drop millions of flyers saying, get out of here, we're about to bomb. And it's Hamas that holds guns to their head and says, no, you're not leaving. It's Hamas and other terror groups that are making these innocent civilians get
Thank
killed.
you, Steve. Thank you. Gary Hodges.
Thank you, Gary Hodges, 2148 Stewart Street. So here we are again. Geopolitical issues. Didn't intend to talk about this tonight, but I guess it's the game being played, so I choose to participate. But I'm wondering why we limit ourselves to this situation, this war, this conflict. If we as a city are going to take a stand, let's be big, let's go bold, let's take a real stand. So until my time runs out, I'm going to just, off of Wikipedia, I will list ongoing armed conflicts and total casualties to date. Internal conflict in Myanmar, 180,000. Well, I'll skip that. We're already talking about it. Insurgency in Maghreb, 70,000. War in Sudan, up to 15,000. Russian-Ukrainian war, 180,000 to 200,000. Colombian conflict, almost 500,000 people. The Afghan conflict, 1.5 to up to around 2.5+ million people. The Somali civil war, 360,000 up to about 1 million. Allied Democratic Forces insurgency, the DR Congo attacks, that's around 10,500. Communal conflicts in Nigeria, 98,300. The Iraqi conflict, up to 1.25 million. Insurgency in Khyber, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. 61,500 people. Kivu conflict, another DR Congo, Rwanda issue. A lot of nasty stuff there. Some of that, is that where we get our cobalt, where the kids drag it out of the mines for our batteries in our cars and phones? Anyway, 27,000 people. Mexican drug war, 357,000 to 400,000. Sudanese nomadic conflict, 388,000 to 400,000. Boko Haram insurgency. This one's particularly nasty, especially if you're a Christian. 373,000 down. There's a real long one. Syrian civil war with a lot of subheadings, suffice to say, up to 600,000. That's the second page. There's several pages. You can go to Wikipedia if you want. There's a lot of wars in the world. I mean, it's really disturbing. It's very sad. And again, let's not limit ourselves to Israel and Hamas. I mean, let's go big. Let's do a proclamation for all of these and demand ceasefires across the board. Yemeni civil war, 380,000. Anglophone crisis, this one's only 7,000. That's in Cameroon and Nigeria. Ethiopian civil conflict, I feel like I've already said that, but here it is again, up to 600,000. Gang war in Haiti, that's in the news these days. I mean, that is nasty stuff. The Clinton Foundation, I'm sure, will resolve that soon. 3,700 people dead in that. Kurdish separation in Iran, we have up to 58. Okay, well, I'm sorry, there's many more.
Thank you, Gary. I'll give a couple minutes to see if anybody else would like to speak. Lance.
Mayor and Council, Lance Whitaker, 1750 Collier Street. As you can see, 76% of the population today disagree with the ballot that we are being given. That's why I call it the Smickers Muckers campaign. 3 out of 4 dentists disapprove of the campaign. And yeah, we can call it spring has sprung. So on a happier note, springtime is here officially in 10 minutes. Thank you. You have a good day.
Thank you, Lance. Seeing no one else, I'm going to close final call, public invited to be heard, and move on to mayor and council comments. Any comments from our council? Councilor Rodriguez.
Well, thank you, Mayor Peck. The pre-session, that got canceled was where I was going to bring this up, but at our coffee with council on Saturday that Councilmember Chris and I participated in, there was a constituent who is talking about a newly implemented program in the city of Detroit, which aims to keep the canopy of the city healthy. And so that program involves elderly members and members of the community that have private trees on their properties who may not be able to financially maintain those trees and save those trees. Because if anybody has had an arborist to their home recently, it's not cheap.
No.
And so it's something that I want to suggest that we maybe take a look at as a city council at a future time. And I'd rather talk about it again at like a pre-session before I am ready to make a motion on it. But I just wanted to bring that to the council's attention, that I thought it was a very substantive proposal brought by one of our constituents that we should consider. So thank you.
Thank you. That's interesting, especially since we did have a resident bring that up to us at one of our public invited to be heard, how expensive it was. Is there anyone else that, seeing no one, I would turn this over to the city manager. Any remarks?
No comments, Mayor, Council.
City attorney, Eugene?
No comments, Mayor.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, you did. I didn't hear you. Okay. So that's been moved by Councilor McCoy, seconded by Councilor Martin, that we adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Don't say no, Aaron. No. Thank you. We are adjourned.